Alright, welcome back. Rim here. Now that we have everything installed, we can take a look around and get started. Once we open the engine, it will prompt us for what kind of project we are creating. There are several options available to us that come preloaded with assets and code to get a head start on the type of game we want to create. To make things simple and show off some of the features, we'll select the first-person template. This will set up a first-person shooter style game. That means the camera view will be what your player sees directly, whereas the third-person template would have your camera view directly behind the entire character, like a Souls-like RPG or a third-person shooter like Gears of War or Fortnite. Go ahead and select first person. In the corner we have some project details. Blueprints is the programming style I'll be showing you. It is a visual scripting style that utilizes flowcharts that are very simple to learn. We can cover text-based programming later, but this is an easy first step. The targeted platform is what we plan on publishing on primarily. Let's change this to mobile to set it up for mobile release later. Quality preset. Let's change this to scalable to make it more friendly on lower end hardware. And then starter content, we want to keep this checked so we'll have some basic assets and textures to use. We're going to leave ray tracing off for this as it can cause some performance issues on devices that do not support it. At the bottom, let's give a project a name. The long text box is the file path. You can change this project folder location by clicking the folder icon. Don't worry about creating a folder specifically for the game, it will do that automatically. Just set up a projects folder somewhere if you don't want to keep the default. And lastly, we'll give our project a name on the right. When you're ready, go ahead and click Create. It may take a while to load for the first time. If you're having consistent loading issues with the compiling shaders message, I'll be posting a quick supplementary video along with this one on some ways to speed up the process that involves changing a couple of settings. Once you load in, you'll be faced with this interface with your main view in the middle. I'll go over some of the things. The main window in the middle is called the viewport. You can directly make changes here in real time and interact with your game directly. To move around your game world, you can hold your right mouse button and move the mouse to look in a direction. You can also use the WASD keys on your keyboard to actually move around. It's very similar to playing a game. Just about everything you see in the world is clickable. If you click on something, it will highlight yellow and give you a little widget in the middle of it. This widget is used to position the object along a certain axis. You have X and Y for left and right, and forward and backwards. Those are the red and green arrows. The Z-axis is up and down, that's the blue one. So this will allow you to move your objects around in 3D space. By pressing the spacebar once, this widget will change to 1 for rotation, or you can rotate an object around those same axes. Pressing the spacebar again will change it one last time to the scaling widget, where you can scale or stretch an object in a direction. If you place your mouse cursor in the middle of the widget, it will transform the object across multiple or all of the axes at the same time, depending on where the cursor is. To deselect an object, press the escape key. If at any point in time you feel like undoing a change that you've made, you can use the Ctrl-Z keyboard shortcut. At the top right of the screen, you also have the outliner. This will show you all of your assets on a particular level or map. In most projects, you'll see certain naming conventions, like these SM underscore and then the name of the object and which one it is. Naming your assets like this is a very important part of object-oriented programming. It lets you know exactly what and which object it is, so you can easily reference it directly later if you need to. In this case, SM stands for static mesh. A mesh is basically a 3D model. Static means it isn't animated or changes on its own. If it was a player character or an enemy or something that may be animated, it would be marked as a skeletal mesh, because it has animation bones and parts that move. Below the outliner, you'll have the details pane. This shows you everything about the object that you have selected, from size and scale to what mesh file it's using, to the material that's on it. These cubes are set up to use physics, so when they're shot in game, they move and fly around as if they were hit. This is also a setting in the details pane. There's a lot of information here, so we won't cover too much of it right now, but this will be a very important section to pay attention to later. At the bottom, we have our content browser, or drawer as they're calling it now. You can click on it or use the Control Spacebar shortcut to pull it up. This is where all of the assets are located for your project. You'll see that this template is already loaded with plenty of content to get started with. Another important thing to keep in mind when making projects is to also keep this organized and use good naming conventions to make it easier to find the things you're looking for. Let's double click on the starter content folder and open it up. To show you how to place something in the world, let's go into the architecture folder. This contains some sample meshes. Let's select this doorway and click and drag it into the world. I want to position this in between this gap to make more of an actual doorway between the sides. Once you drag the doorway into the world, it should automatically snap to the floor. However, if it doesn't, you can press the N key and it will snap to the floor. You can do this with any object to automatically lower it to ground level. With the doorway selected, you'll see that same positioning widget we were talking about earlier. It may still be on scaling mode from where we had it selected before. If you press the spacebar, it'll change back to the grab feature. We will use the X and Y axis to position it in between the two sides. It's not the end of the world if the doorway partially clips to the floor or the wall, but it may cause issues with lighting later, which I will cover in a future video. Textures and materials are also selected from the content browser. To texture an object, you can just drag one of these materials onto it. Let's find one. Go ahead and open the content browser, and let's go back to the starter content folder and find the materials folder. I'm going to select this brick wall material and drag it onto our doorway. And just like that, our wall now looks more like a brick wall. There's a lot that goes into creating these textures and assets, which we'll definitely get into at a later date. But to finish off this video, I want to show you how you can play this level. There are a couple of invisible objects that have certain functions that can be placed into the world. This controller icon with the flag is the player start object. This tells the game where you want the player to start. If we click on the little green play button at the top, it will spawn us in at this location. You can use the WASD keys to move around, and if you walk up to this gun that's in front of you, you can pick it up and start shooting the cubes around you with the left mouse button. Be sure to walk up close to our doorway and see what we've done so far. Take some time to go crazy for a little bit, and I'll see you in the next video.